Well, there's the emotional power of blues music that always kind of hit me, and then I felt the history and the power and the strength, like of blues music and country music and folk music. It didn't seem like it was in denial about death. It had a lot of strong emotions about life, and it seems like a lot of the pop music was attempting to try to paint sort of a really unreal and rosy picture of life, that didn't really ring true with what I was experiencing as a kid, growing up and looking at the people around me. But the beauty, there was just an incredible beauty and strength in folk music and blues. I love this guy named Mississippi John Hurt. His music was the first thing that really hit me in that area. I was going to the library and just going through all these records there. I didn't know what they were, and I came upon one of his, and it just knocked me out.
Now, I believe your parents were both teachers. How did they react to their son quitting school at such a young age and hitting the road as you did?
Oh, well, they were appalled, Yeah. It was like the worst thing you could do. I mean, without getting too psychological about the whole thing, I don't know why it all turned out like that, but that was the one thing that I know that they really didn't want me to do, but I just had to do it the way I saw it, I guess. It worked out in the long run. I was playing in bands and had, doing pretty good. I was like, 14, 15 years old, and I was at, I was out of place to live or whatever, I used to hitchhike around all the time. It was the period of time that I was in, too, It just was the way I thought you were supposed to do it, And I used to sit in school when I was in school and just, sort of stare out the windows at these train tracks that were running by out there and just kind of imagine going off, to the West Coast or going down to Texas or just going somewhere far, far away from this place I was at. So I was, leaving in my mind way before I even left, physically.
27 to 11. We're chatting on the program tonight to singer-songwriter Peter Case. Do you recall having any particular expectations when you hit the road?
Yeah, I don't know. I used to want to go see, when I used to hit the road when I was a kid, I used to want to go to the big cities and see what was going on there, because I'm from over by Buffalo and like a real small town. So the first place I headed for was New York City, and I went up to Boston, down to Washington, D.C. This was when I was like 15, 16, hitchhike, and I'd go up north into Canada and hitchhike around. I don't know, I just look out for meeting people and playing songs and finding places to sing and stuff, I don't know. It was an exciting time. I was hoping to find people that knew about music and learn about music, and
You spent a lot of time playing street corners at one stage, didn't you?
Yeah, well, all during that whole period, I did that a lot. And then finally, when I came out west, I did it for quite a bit of time in San Francisco, and you could actually make a pretty good living and just singing on the corner. There was a whole bunch of guys I fell in with hanging up near North Beach and all around San Francisco, actually. That were really good guitar players. There's this guy named Mike Wilhelm. He was in a band called the Flamin' Groovies. But before that, I met him before that, actually, and he'd been in a group called the Charlatans, and we kind of hit it off. So I was playing guitar with him, and he was teaching me how to finger pick, kind of country blues type styles on the guitar and stuff. And it was a lot, it was a great period of learning about music, and I didn't really have anything to fall back on or any other sort of other thing. I never had a day job during this whole period. I would either had enough money to pay for a hotel room, or if I didn't have that, they had real cheap hotel rooms.
Yeah.
You could get them for like $30 a week or something. And if I didn't do that, then I just, go, crash somewhere in a van or, somebody's spare room or whatever. And I just never really cared about anything except just, trying to learn music and play it and sing it. And,
In terms of performing it and in stagecraft and presenting to an audience, what do you think you took from those street corner days that you still exist in your stage presence today?
Well, I just worked, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours out there doing that, So it gave me some kind of confidence. And then sometimes there'd be a big crowd, and sometimes there wouldn't be any crowd at all, And so I sort of learned that, things, kind of come and go when you're playing music, and so does the vibe, the muse or whatever you want to call it, the power in it. And, sometimes we'd be playing and we'd have a really big crowd, and then you know, I remember one time we smoked a joint and came back out to play for the same crowd, and just everybody left. And you know, things like that would happen. I mean, I learned a lot about just plugging into music and communication with people, you know, because as people are walking by, you've got about a minute to get their attention and to get them on some sort of beam, you know, and that was sort of the deal. So I guess I learned some of that from there.
Tell us a little bit about the Nerves. We didn't hear too much about them down here.
There was a real, there was one, when I was playing on the street, this one guy used to come by a lot, and he turned out to be, and we went around the corner and played guitar someplace in an alley or something. He played me, you know, 4 or 5 really great songs. His name was Jack Lee, and he was just a really great kind of pop songwriter, you know, like a rock and roll, you know, 2.5-minute song, 3-minute songs, you know, very melodic, almost kind of like the Beatles, but with kind of a modern twist to it. And I was just very kind of captivated by what he was doing. And so he was putting together the Nerves, and I joined up with them and played bass, and we went on tour as the opening act for the Ramones in '77. And the band lasted about a year after that. We started like 76, our first record came out, and then we broke up at the end, right at the start of '78. So it didn't really last that long. The group Blondie ended up recording a couple songs that the Nerves had done, "Hanging on the Telephone" on their Parallel Lines record.
Oh yes,
that's one of our songs, and they do it pretty much exactly the way we did it.
Now your recorded work with the Nerves and of course later the Plimsouls didn't, I guess, reflect your musical roots as much as your solo work does. Now, how strong for you was the pull to get back to your roots after those bands?
Well, I feel like, you know, I've always felt like my roots are sort of like, you know, folk and blues and country on one hand, and then American rock and roll on the other. You know, like I grew up. I got a sister that's 10 years older than me, and she turned me on to Chuck Berry and Buddy Holly and Little Richard and the Everly Brothers and Fats Domino. We had all those kind of 78s around the house, you know. And so I've always had those kind of two strains running through my music, you know. And then as I grew up, the big bands on the radio outside, you know, Dylan and the Beatles and stuff, you know, with bands like the Standells and American garage rock, you know. And then the English bands, you know, that were great, like the Stones and everything. So, you know, I always had both those kind of, you know, it was a real typical thing for me when I was a kid to go play, like, you know, some sort of, you know, acoustic gig somewhere, like, you know, some sort of, back then it was like church basements and coffee houses, and then I'd run across town and play with my garage band. We played at some fire hall, you know, at some dance or something. I've just always been kind of balancing the two. But, so the Nerves and the Plimsouls, though, was sort of my real rock and roll kind of, in terms of my professional career, that was my band period. Yeah, you know what? About 1981 or 2, you know, the Plimsouls had only been going for a couple of years, and I realized I really wanted to get back to what I'd done. You know, I hadn't really played acoustic guitar for a couple of years, and I hadn't really played. And I started playing it. You know, somebody gave me a Gibson Hummingbird guitar, and I just started playing it again, and this whole thing kind of opened up for me again. You know, the big difference between what I did with the Plimsouls and what I do solo is really the words, because it's the communication you can get. You know, the songs for the Plimsouls and the Nerves, you know, they seem more like telegrams, you know, like, you know, conveying like some sort of sense of emergency or an extreme emotion in like, you know, a couple of words, you know. It's very... you know, get to the chorus is sort of the motto of the whole thing, really, of a lot of rock and roll. And with my solo records, like this latest one, you know, the whole thing is communication. You know, you get, and I miss that kind of communication when I miss being able to get the words across. You know,
yeah.
So an important part of me, and I think probably of my upbringing and everything, is, you know, being able to tell stories and be able to talk about things that happened. And, you know, I remember one time we had this song called Sorry in the Plimsouls, and everybody thought, oh, you know, it's an Australian song, actually. So we used to do the song by the Easy Beats, Sorry.
Oh, of course.
And which is a group we really loved, was the Easy Beats. And I remember people thinking that we were singing Party or something, you know, like here in Southern California. It just seems so stupid, you know, that people didn't really know what we were talking about. And when somebody said that to me, I just sort of, it was actually the beginning of the end of the band too. I felt that I wanted to do this other thing where I could really, connect, with people. I need to do it for myself,
Yeah.
And so when I go out on tour, I generally go solo. I mean, sometimes I'll take a trio or something, but lots and lots of times I go solo, and it's just, me and a guitar in the audience,
Have you found you've had to consciously alter your on-stage persona much as a solo act, a solo acoustic act, as compared to your rock and roll days?
Well, no, not really. I mean, once again, I feel like I get to be more myself, really, when I'm just there as solo, It's not that I don't get to be myself with the rock and roll band, but there's just so much noise. It's almost like a wall between you and the audience, I mean, it's definitely, I love it, I love playing rock and roll, but if I had to choose between the two, the solo thing would be my thing. They didn't have a clue what I was doing. They really didn't get it, But, I don't think they really got the Plimsouls either, except that we were a really popular band. By the time Geffen signed us, we already had a hit on the radio on our own label,
Yeah.
So they just wanted us because everybody else did. They never showed any, insight into what we were doing in the least. I mean, they really didn't. I'm not just kidding.
Yeah.
And so it was I was under contract with them for a long time. I really couldn't get out of it, so I just went ahead with my business, and it was sort of crippling as far as whatever, it was a drag.
You've had some great players on your albums over the years. Do you have certain players in mind for your songs before they're recorded?
Not necessarily, Right now, the last two records I've made with Greg Leese and Don Heffington and a few other people, especially Greg Leese. He's like a lap steel, pedal steel player, guitars. And I love playing with him, and I'm really hoping to make another record with him. I love working with him. But no, I don't really. I mean, there's this drummer I really like on the last record too. He's this kid. He's 23 now. His name's Sandy Sheila. And I just loved playing with him. He's just a real natural, fresh feel on the drums. But no, I don't really. When the song is a thing for me, and getting it down so it really works as just as a song, And then we go down and we try to keep the arrangement on the records really true to how the song's supposed to be.
In general, do you find your songs change much during the recording process to how you originally envisioned them?
Not so much on this last record, no. You know what? If it really changes a whole lot from the way I originally envisioned it, that's usually a sign something's wrong. Not to say that the way I originally envisioned it is so faultless or anything, but if I get down there and all of a sudden we're like looking around for something out of left field to make something work, generally it's not. Things come up and surprise me and they're great, but they're still close to the original feel of what I'm thinking of.
And talk about your writing. What qualities or aspects of your songs are always most important to you to get just right in the writing process?
Well, you want to make them really vivid and real. I like the songs to really have a real breathing, living, breathing kind of presence to them. And so what I'm really trying to do is get something that's really real, that it moves me and gives me the chills. So I'm looking for something that really captures my imagination. And I figure if I can really do that to the point where it's something I want to sing over and over again, that I'm on the right track. That's all I really have to go on. It's got to be some sort. That's why a lot of my songs, they got things in there that I'm trying to figure out or I'm trying to get to. There's something I need to hear, and then hopefully, if I'm not that much different from anybody else, so it's stuff other people would be interested in too.
You have a best time for writing?
Anytime that there's not a bunch of people yelling at me trying to get me to do something or you know what I mean. I just need some time and space. I love to write. I write almost every day. I'm always playing guitar and writing and doing stuff. But I like writing in the middle of the night, and I like writing in the daytime, in the middle of the morning. So anytime's okay. Whenever it's going,
You have songs that tend to be carried around with you for a while before you actually get them down?
Yeah, sometimes, it'll be like a picture or a feeling or sort of a, thing, or sometimes it'll even be just a thing on a guitar or something. Sometimes there'll be things I've carried around my whole life that, from when I was a child or something that, finally you'll find the song for,
did the deal with Vanguard Records come about?
I was on my way over to, I was doing this festival out here, and I was on a bus heading out to the festival, and there was a girl across the aisle from me on the bus, and I ended up, it was like one of those times, rare times in life where somebody, she gave me her card, and I called it up, or they called me, I can't remember what it was, but we started talking. She was from Vanguard, and they hooked me up with this guy who was the president of Vanguard, and he just signed me immediately, And so I've been with him for, 4 records, I think, now.
It's a label.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
No, you go.
I had a lot of their records when I was a kid,
Yeah.
And so I was already into it, Skip James and John Hurt and, that kind of thing.
It's a label with a great tradition in roots music. What has it meant to you personally to be on such a specialist label?
Well, it's been great, It's meant, one thing is I get to do what I want to do, and I don't have a lot of people always trying to, push me in another direction from the one that I feel is right, And I used to constantly go through that at the big labels, so I'm really thankful not to be going through that. They really support me, and they keep my records in print, once I make them, and they sort of back me up. They don't have the muscle to go out and, get it played all over the place, high rotation and all that kind of thing. But they do get my records out there, and they do back me up, so it's cool.
I guess with hindsight, if you had your time over again, would you have preferred to been with a label like that from the beginning?
I might have done better if I wouldn't have been on the, I might have gotten, outside of like the first Plimsouls record or something, I really probably shouldn't have been on that big label, But there was nothing, I don't know, once I got over there, I was sort of stuck, But who knows? I really don't know. I got to make some good records there. The Blue Guitar record there is a classic that, it seems like a lot of people really like. And they treat it like one anyhow, so that's nice, It's, and my first record, a lot of the songs off those records have been covered by other artists and stuff.
Absolutely,
It's been good, but just not, it was just difficult,
Overall, your solo albums have generally been very well received by critics, but of course haven't sold in huge numbers. Would you trade some of that critical acclaim for more commercial success?
Well, I don't know where you go to trade that stuff in, you know what I mean? It's not really it doesn't really work like that. You can't, that's what they say, you really can't trade in your critical acclaim for anything at the grocery store, but, I'm doing okay, so I'm glad, the reason I think people, like critics like the records is because they're put together, the way they're supposed to be, And, the reason why we're not selling a lot of them, I think, is just because we're not really getting the exposure, but, it seems like everybody I play these songs for, gets them. My whole idea of what a good song is that I can go in a bar anywhere, where they speak English and play one of these songs. I can go into a pub, or I can go into on a corner. I can go anywhere with these songs and play them, and people would get where I'm coming from with them.
Mm-hmm.
It's all in the song. It's all written into it, and the things I'm saying there, I think they're powerful enough to sort of stop people in their, and get people to listen. And, you're up against a different thing in radio, though, They don't really care so much about songs. It's more about, a lot of different things, and so I'm not really concerned about it, whatever, I'm trying to be successful, I work really hard, but, just because you're playing music doesn't mean you're supposed to be a millionaire or something like that, you just do what you do,
Of course. What's the extent of your live work these days over there?
Well, last year I was on the road about half the year, and this year I just got back from sort of a spring tour all around from, all the way from Colorado down into Texas and back up through Oklahoma and Iowa to Chicago and back down again to Tennessee and into Georgia. And I do those kind of runs pretty regularly. But right now I'm producing this record. It's a Mississippi John Hurt tribute record for Vanguard.
Oh, fantastic.
So I'm kind of here doing that and lining people up for that, and I'm writing my next record, which we're going to cut, I guess, at the end of summer or the beginning of fall or something. And then I've been writing a lot of songs with some other people, and we're trying to get them cut by different people and doing different things. And so I got a lot of different things going on right now. Right at the moment, I'm just sort of playing in the Los Angeles area.
Right, and types of venues you're playing, mainly clubs?
I just played a place called the Moondog Cafe, and I've been playing this place called McCabe's Guitar Shop, which is a great place to play. A lot of people play there. Pretty famous place. It's been open for about 30 years, and it's had everybody from Memphis Slim and Ry Cooder and Elvis Costello's played there and everybody, and so I've been playing on the West Coast and stuff lately.
Has there been any approaches from down here to get you down?
Every once in a while, somebody comes up, with something. I think there's some guys down there called Cargo or something like that. And they'd approached me a couple of times, but then we finally never really, there was a scheduling problem, and then we finally never put it together. I would love to come down and play in Melbourne and Sydney and anywhere else, And so, I'm all for it. So it's always been, I go play Italy, and I'll go play France, and I'll go play England, and I play Ireland regularly, But I have never been over there, so I would love to come down.
I will have to work on that. Now, tell us some about these upcoming projects, the Mississippi John Hurt album. Who's involved in that so far?
Well, so far, it's going to be on Vanguard, and Van Dyke Parks is doing a cut, and Dave Alvin, I don't know if you know Dave down there.
Sure.
Dave Alvin's going to play on it. Chris Smither, do you know Chris?
Yes.
Chris is going to be on it. And then we're talking to a number of other people. It's not all clear yet, everybody who's going to be on it, but we're talking to some people that are, it's a lot of people that, would definitely have the feel for his music and have been playing it, I mean, I've sat around in hotel rooms with a lot of different people playing Mississippi John Hurt material in my life, so I'm trying to call them all up.
Cool. And your own album, do you have a particular direction in mind for that one?
Well, I'm writing the songs for it right now, and I'm sort of picking up where I left off at the end of the last one, so it's not going to be exactly like the last one, but it's sort of, I'm just continuing on that road,
Okay. All right, Peter, look, I'll let you go. Thanks very much for your time.
All right, John, thanks a lot, man. I hope to see you down there.
Sure do, and we look forward to those new recordings.
Great, man.
Hopefully we'll catch you down here real soon.
All right, good.
Okay, take care.
Talk to you later now.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.